So my name is Connor. I am 30 years old, and I was first diagnosed with depression when I was about 22, 23, I think.
My name is Rachel. I'm 55 years old. I was first diagnosed with bipolar disorder when I was 28 years of age.
Hi, my name is Chantal Serrano. I am 21 years old, and I first suspected having depression when I was around 12 years old. I didn't get officially diagnosed until this year, actually, 2021, in March.
Hi, my name is Celeste. I'm 21, and I was first diagnosed 6 months ago.
My name is Kimberly Haley. I'm 24 years old, and I was first diagnosed with a mental illness when I was 14 years old. I am diagnosed with depression, general anxiety, and bulimia nervosa.
I had a friend who kind of just dumped a cat on me. Her name was Lily, and she was a very weird cat, kind of almost like a dog. And I grew really attached to her. And despite the struggling that I was going through, and I was also doing therapy at this time. I would come home and there she was, and it was great, great to see her. She was always happy to see me. Would curl up with me at night, stuff like that. And then, unfortunately, one day, she was killed by one of my mom's dogs. And I just cracked. And it seems really silly to say that because it's like, dude, it's just a cat. But that's kind of the defining moment of how mentally ill how depressed I was, that I did get so attached to a cat. However, I'll still contend she was an awesome freaking cat. So at that point, that's where I was super, super low.
I always knew I didn't feel good. There was never a moment where I had an epiphany that I wasn't as well as another person or as ordered in my thinking. I was depressed a great deal. Really was, the word I want to use is plagued with self-hatred.
I kind of had a realization last March 2020 that I had a mental breakdown, essentially, and I realized I kind of needed help and that I wasn't happy, and I hadn't been happy for a long time, and I kind of lived in denial of that for a long time.
I don't think there was like an exact moment when I realized I was mentally ill and needed help. I think it was pretty obvious from early on, and the older I got, probably around 12, it was just undeniable. It was a fact of life. I didn't actually seek out treatment until 6 months ago, back in September of 2020, I think, because I had just gone through a really big breakup, and my mental illness was one of the biggest contributing factors to the end of that relationship.
The moment that really made me realize that I was mentally ill was probably when I was about 13 years old, and I began self-harming via cutting myself on various parts of my body. That's really when I personally knew that it was beyond just being sad, but I didn't really know that I needed help for it, or I didn't really want the help for it, so that took a little bit of extra time.
When I went to the doctor's office, and the guy was like, yeah, I remember I really didn't talk much during that appointment. It was just more my mom, and the doctor, but and he was like, yeah, I can see that this guy needs help. So that's when medication came in, and I have been on it since then. And did a couple little adjustments here or there with the type of medication. And, in therapy kind of, went on and off with it. And it hasn't been, I haven't been that fond of it.
I see a lot more value in being consistent, taking my medication, going to sleep around the same time, waking up around the same time, having habits that are very consistent, eating, etc. It seems to balance out the moods as well.
Right now I'm on Lexapro. That is what I've been prescribed. I am majorly depressive and general anxiety. I have general anxiety, which is cool. The Lexapro's been helping a lot. I've been on it for about a month. Yeah, just about a month now. And the first couple of weeks were a little hard, especially the first week, but since then I've been feeling a lot better, which is cool. And I'm in the process of starting therapy. I have my first, well, right now I'm looking for a therapist, so that's what my health insurance is helping me do. And then I'm going to hopefully start therapy in the next few weeks or so.
I have tried both therapy and medication. I was really on the fence about trying both of those options. I had like a pretty big breakdown when I was 16, and that was the first time that my family had ever expressed concern and thought that I should pursue treatment and medication, but I didn't want to. I didn't want to lose my sparkle. But fairly recently I actually got a medication prescription, and it's actually been helping quite a bit.
I began therapy for about 2 years, starting in 2010, going into the end of 2012. I also began taking medication shortly after beginning therapy, I want to say towards the end of 2010. At this point in time, about 10 years later, I am just on medication right now. I have done interpersonal group therapy about 1.5 years ago, but other than that, I'm currently just on antidepressants for the depression and anxiety.
The biggest speed bumps were, my dad being diagnosed with cancer at the end of 17, beginning of 18, and then him passing a year later, and then I myself getting diagnosed with cancer a year later. And then, and there's also just been, my own personal struggles.
Speed bumps were the traumas. There were a lot of losses, and deaths in the family, and it led to my being unable to, or having a great deal of difficulty coping with just the day-to-day living exercises, and that took a while.
So far, I'd say the last 9 years have been the speed bump, because I haven't been getting help and I've been denying that I need help. But since I've, life happens and you don't want to admit it to yourself, and it happens, so.
Yeah, every once in a while I tend to be pretty self-destructive, so a lot of times when things are starting to go downhill, or when things that are out of my control start to go wrong, I kind of like to accelerate the process, and I put myself in situations that make it worse. So every time I start drinking again, that's a speed bump. Every time I get contacted by people from my old life, that's a speed bump. But every single time it gets a little bit better ever since I've started treatment. And it takes a shorter time for me to recover, and every destructive episode is less destructive than the last. So very proud of myself for that.
Speed bumps are definitely something that I deal with especially for my eating disorder. I don't consider myself to be recovered from bulimia, but I also don't consider myself to be actively bulimic either. I still get disordered thoughts and still occasionally engage in disordered eating, but actual incidents in which my symptoms of bulimia are very present are few and far between. So I kind of consider myself in a place of semi-recovery, which means that I'm always kind of hitting speed bumps, but I'm also good at actively coping with them and moving past them, and I am now at a point where these speed bumps become less and less frequent and they're less and less disruptive.
You know, it's always a fun question to ask a person who deals with depression is like, well, what are you happy for? What do you like, or something like that? And you're just kind of like the wrong person to ask. I would have to say the first one would be my dog Gracie. She is a dog that my dad actually ended up rescuing. I think it was either a year before or actually right before he got cancer. You know, second thing would be my two friends, you know, Philip and Jacob. You know, met these two guys at, you know, our first job at Magic Mountain. You know, who would have thought, you know, that was just supposed to be a summer job that turned into a not just a summer job of, like, you know, almost 3 years. But, you know, and those are, you know, friendships that have just continued. You know, I thought I was going to stay friends with the small group of guys I had in high school, but, you know, people grow up and they change and stuff. And, you know, and they've helped me get through a whole bunch of stuff, and, you know, and vice versa. You know, and then I guess the third thing would be, you know, is at the end of it, I am still here. Sometimes I joke, you know, oh, you know, and I'm just like, you know, days going bad, or just a lot of lunacy going on in the world, as this last year has been. You know, I sometimes joke, you know, oh, I'm so glad I did chemo. But, you know, it really is, because I am still here. I am still kicking it.
My children is the absolute top. They're amazing. What they went through as children and what I had to go through as an adult don't compare. I had an adult mentality. And these guys have endured it, weathered it, and become better for it. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that today I have a good, consistent life. I am taking care of myself. I'm living on my own for the first time in my life. I mean, I have housemates, but that's not like being in a family situation or a dependency situation for 55 years or 54 and a half years. So I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for my independence. And lastly, I'll leave you with I'm grateful for hope. Because without the hope, we just simply wouldn't keep moving on.
I met a really cool guy this year. His name is Alec, and I'm really grateful that I met him. He's made me really happy. I'm grateful for how lucky I am that I'm able to go to school. And since the pandemic started, I haven't been working, which is cool. I've been able to really focus on my studies and focus on my major and participate in my education, join clubs, start clubs, have an internship. It's just been really fun, and I feel like I wouldn't have been able to do this before. I feel like I would have been really overwhelmed, and I'm really happy I'm able to take on new responsibilities and new challenges.
I am so grateful for my best friend in the whole wide world, Jordan. I'm really grateful for my family, and honestly at this point I'm really grateful for life. I'm grateful for my own life. There were so many times where I just didn't think I was going to make it, or I didn't see myself being here into the next year, and I'm finally in a place in my life currently where I'm excited for 5 years down the line. And every day honestly just feels like such a blessing. Like every day that I get to be alive feels like such a blessing. So I'm very grateful for life.
My very supportive and understanding family when it comes to mental health. If it wasn't for my mom recognizing and understanding the importance of mental health and taking care of mental illness, I don't know how much longer it would have taken me to begin recognizing and resolving some of my issues and begin treating my illnesses. So I'm very grateful for that. I'm grateful for my education and for my persistent curiosity that keeps me moving forward, even when I don't feel like moving forward. And I am very grateful for the amount of love that I have in my life from a lot of my friends and family. They make my life worth it.